Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Block presented by Around the Block Sports Network. And today we got a good show for you, and we're going to start with hockey as always. Sam, good to see you, buddy. How are you? What's new and exciting?
Well, I think all the major dominoes have fallen in the hockey world. I'm sure we'll get some more action as the season approaches, but right now I thought it'd be a good time to go through the league, go through the divisions, and sort of make predictions as to what we see in this upcoming season, what we think will happen looking forward.
Awesome. And let's get into it right away. And I think we're going to start off with the Metro Division. Some solid teams in here through the board. Definitely over the past 10 years, most teams have been up and down. Uh, where do you want to start off with this, man? Do you want to go from the prediction of last to first?
Yeah, let's definitely start at the bottom, but I want to just look at an overall picture. This division is always a really competitive one because you have these great old cup contenders like Pittsburgh and Washington. You also have this new wave of great teams like Carolina and the Rangers and maybe even the Devils coming up. So it could be a bloodbath this year in the Metro.
Yeah, so many moves being made throughout this offseason. Obviously, we saw Johnny Gaudreau go to the Columbus Blue Jackets, which is going to be huge. But also, too, talking about like historic teams, you look at the Philadelphia Flyers, who've always been a bully in this division. Now, not so much. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see where your list is at. So I guess let's go on over to number one. Let's see what you got here.
Yeah, speaking of being
Philadelphia, baby.
the Flyers, looking at their offseason, they have their coach now, John Tortorella. We know that means they have a culture and an identity. But other moves, Tony D'Angelo, they added to their defense core. That's interesting, but they have so many questions to answer. I think it helps. They'll probably get some better injury luck this year. Kevin Hayes and Sean Couturier will probably play more games, but I don't think they have a single star on their roster. Just no one on this entire team that is a true difference maker. Claude Giroux left last season and then signed with Ottawa in the offseason. And I don't think they have really a shot to win many games at all this year. They just do not have a complete roster at all.
Yeah, like you said, obviously the addition of John Tortorella becoming the new head coach of the Flyers adds a little bit of toughness to this team. But as of right now, like you said, they don't have that superstar player, and really haven't had a superstar player since Claude Giroux was in his prime. You got to remember he's a little older now. Obviously, they've moved on from him, and they're going in a different direction. I've mentioned before I thought they had a decent draft this past draft. But other than that, they don't really have the on ice production to keep up with everybody else in their division. They don't have the defense. They don't have the offensive skill set through a solid top three line set. So I think right now it's going to be a little bit of a rebuilding period, but they're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with when it comes to lowering the body. They're going to be a team that's going to wear out people more than actually having the craftiness. So I do agree that Philadelphia should be looking towards the bottom of this division.
Definitely. One thing I want to mention here, something to keep an eye on, is the development of Carter Hart in net. We saw his rookie year; he was really impressive for this team, and has since fallen off a cliff. And this is something I'm really worried about because he has the talent to be a really high level goaltender in this league. But what they're not helping him out at all. The defense is full of holes. They've had play Rasmus Ristolainen, who's a good offensive defenseman. They play him top 4 minutes. He's a pylon defensively. You cannot win games when one of your top four defensemen just gives up opportunities like he does.
Yeah, and obviously he has had a little bit of a rough up coming into the NHL. Has always shown that he's capable of putting in the work and effort into getting better, but it just seems like nothing is sat right with Rasmus Ristolainen. But it seems like most of the characteristics over at this Flyers organization is kind of like that as well. They've got the effort, but maybe just not the natural superstar setup, especially on defense and goaltender in Carter Hart. I mean, he just needs. It seems like right now he's kind of in the sophomore slump, but it's been going on for a couple years now.
Yeah.
So that's really their main issue. And you really can't start improving even if you get your superstar until you have solid goaltending in that. So
Mhm.
right now, yeah, I see them at the bottom of the pack. They're going to be in trouble for some time to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll keep an eye out. I hope he can have a bounce back year. I don't see them developing him properly in this season at least.
Alrighty. Well, who do you got at number 7?
Number 7, I have the Islanders. And what's funny about the Islanders, we know Lou Lamoriello is a pretty conservative GM, but they did just nothing in this offseason. They traded for Alexander Romanov from Montreal, gave up a first round pick to do it. Good player, good young defenseman Romanov, but that's a hefty price for him. And then they just did nothing. I mean, they made no moves. They fired Barry Trotz in the offseason and decided that that was good enough. That was their offseason. And for a team that struggled to put pucks in the net, they did not do anything to fix that. And so,
Yeah, I agree. It seems like they don't have an identity of where they're going forward over the next 5 years. Usually, when a new head coach is hired or even a previous coach is fired, there's at least a span of looking into at least 3 to 5 years of what this team is going and what direction you want to go into. Firing Barry Trotz right off the bat is not a good sign at all for this organization. And then, like you said, there has been no movement whatsoever by this organization to get better, to get faster, and to also, in my opinion, to help out some of the other star players they have already on this team. Not really surrounding talent around overall through the top 4 lines, including defense. So, in my opinion, yes, they can get on a hot streak here and there, but it's nothing to sustain a successful season and really go after the top dogs in this division.
yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. They have no identity. What is their plan going forward? Are they going to build around Matt Barzell and Anders Lee? That's not a bad idea. Those are talented players. What did you do to help them out? Are you going to tear it down to the studs and rebuild? That's fine. That makes sense. You didn't make any moves to do that. You acquired a young defenseman. That's it.
Yeah, and right now that's the direction they're going. I mean, they haven't shown any indication of what they're doing. So if that's the case, then in my opinion, and to the public, most likely it means look out. We might be getting rid of Barzell and Anders Lee down the road because we're not putting anything around them to help them be successful.
Absolutely. And I always say if you're if you're staying still, you're falling behind in this league. And they have stood completely still. I hope that they figure it out. But for this coming year, they were fifth last year. They were tough to play. They're going to be a lot easier to play this coming year.
I couldn't agree more.
All right, at number 6, we have the New Jersey Devils. This was a tough one for me, honestly. I really do value their young core. I think very highly of Jack Hughes, obviously, but also Nico Hischier and some of their other guys, Sarangovich. I think they have a really nice young core. I just think maybe they're a year away. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see them take a bigger leap than I'm expecting, but right now, I think adding Andre Palat and John Marino, good help, veteran help for their young guys. That should help, sort of even things out. So it's not just young guys trying to figure it out. They have some veteran leadership there. They also have got Vitek Vanacek to help with their goalie situation. That's nice. But, I think it's just not enough. I think they still need a large chunk of help defensively and goaltending consistency. Those are two big things. And then it's just time, right? Holtz is coming up. He should play this year in the league. And then just Hughes and Hischier probably need just a little more time, I think.
Yeah, obviously, I think they're a very young, talented team, and they are on the uprise 100%. But for me, I can see them making a push, being at the mid-pack, maybe at 4 or 5, but that all depends on some of these older teams. One that we're probably going to talk about a little bit later on is the Pittsburgh Penguins, in my opinion, that they are kind of slowly on the downrise because they've re-signed an older Evgeny Malkin. They really haven't gotten younger. They might lose their free agent in Evan Rodriguez. I believe he's still available, who was doing well, at least with Sidney Crosby and some of their main guys there. But anyways, back to New Jersey. If there are other teams out there that are getting older and not younger, I think this might be New Jersey's year to slide into that 4 or 5 spot in this division. Washington Capitals is another team that's getting a little bit older, in my opinion. But I do think right now it's just becoming such a more faster and more precise game. And having a guy in Hughes and Heischer out there is so important. And then also getting a guy like Palat out there really helps this young core and this young group. So I'm not necessarily going to deem them as being towards the bottom and that's their place for the rest of the season. But as long as they can get some decent goaltending kind of consistently throughout the year, maybe have one bad month, and then maybe some defensive pieces really start to step up in this organization, I think they could be right around that 4 or 5 spot.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, this is definitely a team on the rise. I would not be surprised to see them compete for a wild card spot. We saw the beginning of last year; they were a really, really feisty young team, and it had a lot of speed, a lot of talent for sure. And another year of development, great. Their right wing Alexander Holtz could be a real stud there, and Dougie Hamilton on defense. They have pieces, and I'm excited for this team. They have a nice future ahead of them. I just think they're 1 year away. 1 year.
That's fair to say right now. I'm just going to go with my gut. I've got a feeling that I think the NHL really does enjoy when the New Jersey Devils are doing well, and I think most people do as well. So I really wouldn't be surprised if they have a little bit faster of an upcoming. And yeah, it's kind of a flip of a coin right now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely makes sense. All right, so number 5, I think it might be a little shocking, but I put Washington at number 5 on the outside of the playoff picture. Now, Washington,
a head scratcher when you've got Alexander the Great out there.
Absolutely.
Until he retires and hangs him up, it's really always going to be a question. But yeah, go ahead.
Shouldn't count them out, definitely, with Ovechkin and Backstrom and Kuznetsov and all these guys. But I think when you look at the moves they made, they signed guys like Dylan Strome. They signed guys like They traded for Connor Brown, Henrik Borgstrom. They went after. These are lottery ticket guys. These aren't really substantial ads. It kind of feels like they're just stuck, right? They have a real attachment to this core. Obviously, they won a cup not too long ago, and they don't want to make any moves to disrupt the core, right? Ovi, Backstrom, Wilson, those guys are staying, and they're just trying to fit pieces around the edges and in a really tight market. I don't think that's the way forward for them, right? It just seems like they're just trying to keep that glory of theirs. And I think last year we saw the crack start, and a great Ovi year kept them afloat. I don't think it's repeatable. I think they take a step back, and I think they miss the playoffs.
So for me, right now, there's 2 questions being asked. Where are they going to end up in this division, and what's their future? What are they looking forward to? The way I see it right now, I think it's just a thing out of respect that as long as Ovechkin is pumping in the amount of goals and points that he does each and every year, as long as there's no massive decline, why wouldn't you keep this type of core together? I think it's something that they've kind of come to a realization of, both the organization and the camp of Alexander Ovechkin, that, hey, guys, you still have me. I'm still one of the top names in the NHL. Give me my key pieces and guys that understand the game right now at a very comfortable level and a confident level. I don't think they really want to go through draft or really get young players up into this older type group, because I think they are just looking to get in the playoffs, which they do pretty much every year, and then have a attempt of running at a cup. I don't think they're prepared to go through the young bucks anymore, and I think they're just going to keep doing this until Ovechkin hangs up the cleats or the skates.
Absolutely right. They're looking at this as, in my opinion, I think they want this. They're going to do everything possible to get Ovi that goals record. Everything.
100%. I think they, out of respect, you have to.
Yeah.
Like, literally at this point, it's, in my opinion, it's Ovechkin's organization until he retires. Whatever he wants, whatever he needs to get the goal record, to make his legacy that much better, it's going to go through Ovechkin. That's just in my opinion. But I think the general public would agree with me that that's how they've been operating. Other than that, though, besides that, they really do need to figure out what they're going to do with like their lower bottom defensive core and goaltending, they need to figure that out all the way through, at least for the next 3 to 5 years. Because let's be real, that's Ovechkin's window
Yeah,
until he has to hang him up.
yeah. The next 4 or 5 years are just built around Ovi scoring goals. They signed Darcy Kemper in net. He had a good year last year with the Colorado Avalanche. I don't know if that's the guy for them. Long term, it's not Braden Holtby.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think this team will get into the playoffs. I do, just because it's so hard not to pick them to at least be a wild card. I can't see them having that bad of a deep fall, especially with having their core guys like you were mentioning. And I think a guy like Kemper will be good enough to get him to the playoffs, obviously. But the question is, will it give the Capitals, the organization, to the cup? I don't think so at all.
Yeah.
And at this point, like we've been talking about, it's Ovi's league right now. It's Ovi's organization.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever he says goes.
Absolutely. I really do hope he breaks that goals record.
Oh, I think it'd be great for the sport.
Maybe.
I think it's just for fans of sports in general. Don't have to be a hockey fan to see a record broken like so. So I mean, let's be real. Everybody looks as Gretzky as the greatest player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's obviously debates in other sports like the NBA where it's like, oh, is it LeBron? Is it Michael Jordan? To me, Gretzky is like flat out, oh, he's just the best player in that league of all time. So the fact that we're having a player right now have a slim chance of catching it, that's awesome. That's great for hockey.
It is, right, to have a modern player break a record in this era of points, right? I mean, this era of hockey was defined by low-scoring defense up until just maybe last year. It seemed inconceivable that a guy could put up that many goals, and it's possible now. We want it to happen, so I don't blame them for going for it. I don't think it's winning in the playoffs compatible, but it's going to be fun to see.
I agree.
All right, fourth place, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets, 6th in the division last year, but their offseason was pretty good, to say the least. Johnny Gaudreau signing $9.8 million AAV. They also got Eric Goodbranson. Had a good year last year, but maybe not a guy you want to rely on for top 4 minutes. Still a good player. And that young core, I mean, I praised them last year for the development they had. They really seem to be going in the right direction, and I think they might make the playoffs this coming year.
I think they've got it within the first 2 lines of their group to do that. I'm more just concerned about the overall identity of this team. I don't know what type of offense they're going to be running here. I think this is going to be a great year for a guy in Patrick Laine. Good for him to get a 4-year deal, get him signed up. But other than that, I mean, once you hit the bottom 2 lines, I mean, I think you got Jacob Voracek down there, Sean Curley and Matthew Oliver. I don't know if those are going to be the guys that are even going to be able to keep up with some of these other bottom 3 and 4th line guys in the league. So that being said, I think Gaudreau and I think guys like Patrick Laine will have a fantastic season. I'm still very concerned about their overall team and how they're going to react and play for a full 82-game season. Obviously, injuries are going to come up just like with any other team. I don't know if this team is deep enough to go and make that big of a jump into the playoffs.
Let me read off to you a potential top 6 for them. Johnny Gaudreau, Jack Roslovic, and Patrick Laine as a first line, with Gustav Nyquist, Boone Jenner, and Jakub Voracek as a second line. That's really, really good.
It is. It's not a bad lineup by any means. I think it's good, but there's something about me, especially just after that first line of just having that much star power. If I was Columbus, I'd be looking to actually splitting up maybe Gaudreau and Patrick Laine just because of the premier talent that both have. I
Yeah,
think that would be a better mindset heading into this season, especially if you want to get production from as many lines as possible. If you want to just go to get Patrick Laine back on track to what he was his rookie year and so on, then yes, put him with Goudreau and have somebody center those two. I think that'll do great if they are looking for points. But if you're looking for wins and just getting yourself into the playoffs, I think it's going to be a different game because you got to remember these guys have to go through some real big guys in their division to get there in the first place. A team that we just mentioned too, the Washington Capitals, they got some big body sizes there that even though they are older, they're going to lay them down, and they've been doing this for years. Like we said, older group, they've seen the league so much, they know how to operate around it. And one thing I will mention too, I think Calgary kind of the one thing that they didn't have besides Matthew Tkachuk was a little bit of feistiness to them, in my opinion. Obviously, they have Lucic. He just could not skate for shit, though. So other than that, though, it seemed like they really had no authority to protect a guy like Johnny Gaudreau and stuff. And I don't know if this team really does either, at least have the toughness, the characteristics. So that being said, I think there are too many other good teams in this division right now. Obviously, they will be in the hunt. I don't think they're a for sure in the playoffs type team yet, though.
yeah. Okay, like they definitely have some holes. I like your idea of splitting up Goudreau and Line. We know Nyquist and Voracek are both good defensively, so that could
You
help
could
make
start
up.
them off together if you just want to get the hype going, if you want to get the good vibes,
They will
whatever it
score
may
a lot
be.
of
But
points.
as of right now, that's just the line that's just going to produce points. Is it going to win you games? Maybe a couple here and there. But if you're looking for consistency, I'd spread the talent around if you're really in the aisle looking for getting into the playoffs.
I think that makes sense. Another concern I would have is that center depth. I mean, Jack Roslovic and Boonjan are fine players. I don't know if they're first and second line centers, but I didn't even get to mention Cole Sillinger or Kent Johnson, who are both coming in, very highly touted prospects who will be good in this league. And maybe it's not next year, but they will be high level contributors to this team, this group in the near future. And then on defense, Adam Bachquist and Jake Bean are both young guys who are getting better. And Adam Bachquist had a really nice year, really promising year last year. If he takes a leap, that becomes a serious team pretty quickly.
It does if all the, in my opinion, it does if all those pieces do and have that increase in productivity that we've seen based off of last year. If they all do that at the same time, of course they're going to make the playoffs. But as of right now, it just they need to have consistency through the
Yeah,
entire team, and that's what's keeping me off, especially for a young core group. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant on it right now. It's not like we're looking at a Washington or Pittsburgh Penguin team who have older veterans all throughout their top four lines and have been doing it for years, even if they don't have the young and sparky moves that these new young guys have.
makes sense. I think it's just a bet on how much you believe in their developments of these young guys. That's the real difference maker here.
I can agree with that.
hmm All right, in third place, I think we have put the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, Pittsburgh finished third last year also. They
Yeah.
are we know all about Pittsburgh, right? Three-time cup champions with this core. Two times in recent memory. They re-signed their guys, Letang and Malkin. When it looked a little bit shaky there, but they brought them back with Crosby, aging but still effective. And of course, the big guy they got this offseason, Jeff Petrie. I think that's a pretty good move for this team. I think that's the real difference here is that they're going to be able to improve while their main core maybe takes a step back.
So I'm going to keep this short and sweet. As much as the two teams are rivals, Pittsburgh and the Washington Capitals, they're both going on the same route right now. They both have their core right now, and it seems at times maybe with a guy like Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin, they'll bring in a couple young free agents from time to maybe add a little bit of extra spark. But other than that, they're going after those veterans. This is the game plan. They're going to do as much as they can to get Sid another cup, Malkin another cup. Letang, whoever it may be on that common core lineup they have there. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like they're going to try and go through the draft or get younger players really anytime soon until those boys hang it up. And after Malkin's contract, I mean, my goodness, that was just such a shocker to me, especially for I thought it was a really good opportunity for Pittsburgh to maybe potentially get some young players under the cap with a world phenomenon in Cindy Crosby. But no, they chose to keep that core together. It seems like once again, Pittsburgh, they owe Malkin, Letang, and Crosby for everything they've done, and they're going to ride that until they're done.
Yeah, they are in the same spot. They're going to retire as Penguins in all likeliness, and that's fair. They've earned that, and I think they have the pieces they got. They re-signed, right? Kapanen, Raquel, they got in on the trade deadline. They re-signed him. They kept this group together. They got Jeff Petrie in here and Ty Smith, a nice young defenseman too from New Jersey. It's enough for them to stay level, right? Even while Malkin and Letang, maybe not Crosby, takes a step back, they'll be better defensively. And so that's why I think I'm keeping them at third, even though they may not be as potent as they were this last season. They're still a good team. They're going to make the playoffs. I would not bet against them.
Yeah, but the one thing I will bet on is between Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. Just wait for the injuries, wait for them to be out, but they're still always good enough to get into the playoffs. So that's always been interesting to me. No matter what, they all three get hurt at some point. And they're out for periods of time, but hey, they get it done. So yeah, I totally see them up in the top end of this division.
Second place now, the New York Rangers. I've been very vocal about my criticism of the Rangers last year. I think they took legitimate steps forward in the offseason. They got
Vincent 100%.
I mean, I love Vincent Trocheck as a second center. He's pretty much exactly what you want there. If he stays healthy, he's pretty great. And I think the big thing is this is another year of development for their young guys, right? I mean, they looked so out of place last year. And for them, just a step forward, just another chance to get better for Lafreniere and Kakko and Vitaly Kravtsov. I mean, these guys were so highly touted. This was the first pick, the second pick, and the 9th pick in the draft. These guys, I mean, they've disappointed thus far, but who knows? I think this is their time to really show that they can be contributors on this team.
Yeah, and for them being such high picks, I think they, out of all the picks in our recent drafts, I would say, and that maybe not even recent, over the past 10, 15 years, I think these guys have had probably the best scenario of walking into the NHL in the sense of not really having all the weight on their shoulders whatsoever. Lafreniere hasn't really been like in a panic mode. Neither has Capo. But at the same time, the way I'm looking at it is, yes, obviously you would expect higher production from these guys. They don't need to right now.
Yeah,
let's treat these first 3 years as development for these young bucks and get them NHL ice level time instead of playing in the AHL like most other draft picks do. And at that point, as soon as your older guys, as soon as Panarin gets old and Chris Kreider, those guys, give them 2-3 more years. They may be edging out of their prime, but next thing you know, Lafreniere, they're in their prime and they're ready to go. So I think they're really in a really good spot. And like you said, adding Vincent Trocheck, that is such a steal. My goodness, great signing. I have them above the team that you're going to have on here next. It is crazy, but I think they are in a really good scenario, and I see them on the uprise in the sense of becoming the team to beat. Right now, they've been on the uprise over the past 3 years of being a team to be in the playoffs consistently. I think they're ready to make the leap over and become the guys that everybody's trying to hunt down.
Yeah, I think to that point, if you're a Rangers fan, you can probably look at this and say, we could have a super team next year. Like, if these guys, Kako and Lafreniere specifically, if they click like we all thought they could, we all looked like they were going to, like they were surefire future first liners. If they click like that, it's over. They're winning the cup.
Oh, 100%.
With Panarin and Zibanejad and maybe Chris Kreider, but with in net Igor Shesterkin, like there's nothing anyone can do. They obviously rode Igor Shesterkin last year. He probably can't have that same level of production this coming year. Not as a discredit to him. It's just kind of impossible to have two 930 seasons in a row. So, but they shouldn't need to, right? We all just are hoping for a step forward from these guys. But if they really like click like we think they can, it's over. They have the highest ceiling of anyone in this division.
I agree, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And Trocheck, he's gonna help. He's gonna help them because he's great defensively and he's great offensively too. I mean, he's just the perfect kind of guy. He has no weaknesses to his game except maybe injury concerns, but everything he does is at a good level. Nothing elite and nothing bad. Just everything is really good.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be great for these guys. All right, our number one team, I don't think it's a discussion. It's Carolina. I can't remember the last time a team lost so much in an offseason and made up for it so easily. Right? They lost Tony DeAngelo and Vincent Trocheck, and then they got Max Pacioretty and Brent Burns to replace them. Like, how easy is it for that?
See, like, here's the thing. I'm a little different. I love Max Pacioretty. He's a little bit older. I love him, though, to this day. Brent Burns, though, like, still, I think it's probably going to be great for him to step in here and have this new role of, once again being on a successful hockey team and having that itch and chase to be on a cup contending team. I just don't know if I've got a weird feeling that it's not going to work out in the sense that this is now a team after all the moves that they have made, as you stated. It's easy, right? They should be winning the division. They should probably win the Eastern Conference without a doubt, and they should be in the cups, in the cup final.
Yeah.
But we've been saying that also for the past 4 years. When are they going to be able to go over the hump and actually pull through? To me, I don't know if adding these older guys is the answer. And maybe it's the wisdom. Maybe it's the guys like I've been talking about with some of these other teams having just the NHL experience. But I think the guys they had previously were doing well enough and have been on this team long enough. I don't see enough of a change compared to the team last year and the team before that and the team before that they are going to be the upfront favorite. And yeah, great. They do amazing in the regular season, which could ultimately give them a division title. But at the same time, it seems like they get by round one easily, and then round two comes and they're done. So if we're looking at this right now as division standings, yes, they're going to be the favorite probably to get there. I think it's going to be the New York Rangers. I just love everything that's going on in New York right now. So I would put them ahead. But other than that, it may be just too much of the old guys. I don't know. Starting to look like Pittsburgh and Washington a little bit. Obviously not completely close to them, but it's a little interesting going with the older guys.
It's funny you say that because it reminds me of a team that had sort of a similar path, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who made the cup final in 2015, and were poised to be cup contenders every year after that, and ran into Pittsburgh, ran into Washington, ran into the Columbus Blue Jackets for whatever reason, and then won the cup, and then won the cup again, and made the final again. I just think experience cannot be shortcut. It has to be earned, and they've earned their experience, right? This is now 3 years where they've been an elite team and 3 years where they've had tough playoff exits. That's 3 years where they've learned, gotten better, and will apply that going forward. They have stars up and down that top nine, really, when you think about it, because now one of, whether it's Stahl, Teravainen, Nietzsche has to play at least third-line minutes.
Yeah.
And then their defense was one of the best in the league. It only got better with Brent Burns, who's aging but still so dynamic defensively. Slavin, Brett Pesci, these are all guys that are shut down. Maybe don't put up the numbers, but are just they just contribute to winning in such an effective way because they're so hard to score against. And I don't think that they took any step back, even when losing Niederreiter as well. They're just a complete team, and they show it every year. And I think they're as good as they've ever been.
Yeah, definitely a good team, like you said, and they're always going to be the favorite. They're going to be the favorite until something drastic happens, and they don't have an addition later on in the offseason to cover up for it. Only time will tell on this one, but I think you have a fantastic list through and through, buddy. We'll see what happens, and I think next week. Do we know what division we're doing next week?
Atlantic.
Atlantic. Well, that's gonna be a fun one. I can't wait for that, buddy.
Well,
Any final words though on the total division standings for the Metropolitan?
watch Kokoniemi as their second line center for Carolina. That'll unlock everything. If they're able
That'll
to do
unlock
that,
everything. All right. All
that's
right.
better. If they have to play Nietzsche's at second line center, that's probably fine too.
Maybe we'll have to place a little friendly bet on this one, a little friendly wager
Not
between the
against it.
Rangers and the Hurricanes.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy. Thank you for joining me. We're going to get out of the hockey unit now, and we're going to move on to football. So until next week, Sam, take it easy.
All right. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. See you next week.
All right, everybody. For the time being, I'm going to switch and bring all of the football boys on here. We've got Tim returning once again, Ben, and Shane. How we doing, boys?
Phenomenal. How you doing?
Not too bad. Beautiful day in Tennessee now that I'm out of New York. So that's been going through my mind. But I'm happy to see you guys and talk some sports. It's been a little bit. And, we've had a crazy 24 hours here in the NFL. So let's just get right into it. We've got Deshaun Watson suspended for 6 games after all the allegations towards him. And we went through a legal judge here. And now the NFL, I believe, has 3 days to respond to this sentence. Boys, I'm going to be brutally honest. This disappoints me. This disappoints me by the NFL. Just based on the history of what has happened in previous situations of different players and what's going on right now suspension-wise. I mean, Calvin Ridley, you bet $1,500, which is nothing for him, and you get banned an entire season. You've got Josh Gordon, who has done marijuana and has been suspended for, I think, 20-plus games. And then you get a guy who has, allegedly done inappropriate things with women and only gets 6 games and nothing against his contract. And that kind of bothers me. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's definitely it sucks. I mean, it's you look at this and it makes no sense. The reasoning to me didn't make sense from the judge. Even she said that she saw a lot of proof from the NFL. They made a good argument. I thought I didn't think it'd be a full year just based off what we were hearing. But 6 games is kind of a slap in the face to any, especially woman that works in the professional sports and works in the NFL. I mean, I saw a stat. It said 0.2 games suspended per woman that spoke out against him.
I think it's a quarter. Like, I think it's literally a quarter per woman.
Yeah, literally, like per woman. That is unbelievable in 6 games to see Tom Brady get 4 for taking air out of a football.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, I mean, it's kind of a disgrace. I mean, the NFL has had many situations like this where they just don't handle it correctly. They don't, I mean, who knows? Obviously, they could still say, no, we want this to be longer. But I highly doubt that anything like that will come. Maybe they'll say something about it, but I don't think anything will change. It's pretty hard, especially for how long this has been going on, for how long the investigation's been going on, how much they found. for it to come back at 6 games is just ridiculous. And I mean, it kind of. I know a lot of Browns fans are jumping ship. I know a lot of people that even just. I don't. It's just. It really sucks. I mean, I don't know. There's really nothing else you can say besides the fact that it's disgusting that the NFL, if they let this happen, just stay at 6 games. And anybody backing him, I'm sorry, but this isn't. You don't have one woman or 2 women speaking out against him. This was 25 plus. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I don't. I'm kind of sick of hearing people say, well, they didn't say he was guilty. They didn't say he was innocent either. And I'm sorry, but if people that think this is a huge conspiracy that 30 women came together to try to ruin this guy's career, no, that doesn't. No, this is, like I said, it's not 1 or 2 women. This is 25 plus women. The report that the New York Times did showed plenty, and it's kind of disgrace that also the fact that he gets nothing taken away from him. He gets $1 million, maybe less than that. He still gets to keep
Less than
$45
that, yeah.
million for a signing bonus, and it's kind of disgusting to me, and that's really all I got to say about it.
Well, especially for me too. After we went through the whole Ben Roethlisberger thing years and years ago, you saw what happened to him firsthand, and how it wasn't just suspension; it was more than that. It was contract, and that was one individual. And not that that's a big deal. I mean, that is a big deal. The only fact, it only comes down to if it's one woman, that's all that matters. Like that should never happen. And the fact that it's 6 games and he can continue to walk out with his fully guaranteed contract and probably be at ease and be like, oh, well, 6 weeks off and then I'm back playing the sport I love. And nothing really happens to me besides maybe get in front of the media and just say, listen, guys, nothing came out. I'm good. I will say, though, I think if I'm correct, the NFL has 3 days to respond to this.
Yeah.
So that being said, a lot of weight on their shoulders right now, starting with Roger Goodell. So we'll see what happens over the next 3 days. Tim and Shane, you want to give your thoughts here?
I think this is really just how do I word it? It's an abuse of power by this Judge Robinson, because you listen to what she writes, and she says, well, the precedent for sexual violations by NFL players is 6 games. That's the precedent that's been set by other suspensions before. However, this is the most, the worst case of sexual misconduct we've ever seen from an NFL player. And using this case as a way to, kind of scold the NFL for their policies on, sexual violations by players, to me is wrong, because it does nothing for anybody. You're using it to make a statement. Oh, the NFL hasn't done well with this in the past. That's great. You have the power to make up for that. You have the power to make an example out of Deshaun Watson, saying, I don't care how good you are, how much money you make, how big your image is, how high you were drafted, what team you play for. You have to abide by the laws just by everybody else. You have to abide by the personal conduct policy. And he clearly breached the personal conduct policy. And he gets the same suspension that Ezekiel Elliott got. And with Ezekiel Elliott, there were a lot of murky details about that. Like, it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. With Deshaun, no details have been murky. We know exactly what happened. And it happened 24 times. And Judge Robinson used this to make a statement about what she believes the NFL has done, instead of just looking at the facts, looking at the complaints from the witnesses, and judging and deeming what is an appropriate punishment. This is not an appropriate punishment. This is a slap on the wrist. Like we said, it's a quarter per victim. You know how fast an NFL quarter goes by? Sit down and watch a football game. I mean, we've seen football games before, right? Team goes on a long clock-chewing drive. Each team's had the ball once and the quarter's over. That is what this suspension amounts to per victim, which to me, it's laughable. This is, I think Roger Goodell has some pressure on him now to really put his foot down and say, no, this is a slap on the wrist and we can't let that happen. Not again, not after Ray Rice got 2 games.
Yeah, and I think you hit on it, Tim, too. The biggest issue with this entire process so far, right? Once Robinson was put in place to be the person who was going to make this decision, we all know all the details of it. It's been shoved in our face for a long time. We know what likely happened in those situations, right? The thing that is kind of lost on this in this ruling is that she even specifically says he is going to have to only use team doctors and masseuses this point forward. Why would she do that if she didn't think that he deserved a longer suspension and was not at risk of doing this again? Right? She knows that the behavior is a pattern. She knows it's egregious. She said that specifically in her briefing. They know that this is who he is as a person. And in the best case scenario for this entire thing, as far as what happened, is that he has a serious issue, some sort of thing going on mentally that's making him do this type of stuff. That's the best case scenario. 66 women in 17 months is who he contacted for massages. No one does that. I'm sorry. Like
2 massages a week.
It's exactly. It doesn't that doesn't just happen because you just can't find a massage therapist. If you're 66 deep finding one, just stop doing it. Like, at that point, you're just not going to be getting massages. Like, we know that there's something going on there, no matter how bad it ends up being or what we think is the case. It's going to be bad no matter what. And the fact that they only gave him 6 games and they're going to let him play this year, it had to be at least a year. They had to push him off for another year, make him stay away for another year, and then reassess the situation next year. That was the only way that it was going to be remotely fair to this process. And even that isn't going to be fair enough if they did that. I don't expect the NFL to change anything. I don't think they're going to fight this ruling. I think that the best outcome for the league and for future situations is that the league either does try to step in and make it a precedent, like, hey, if this level of allegations come out, this is what you should expect to happen to you. If they're not going to do that, they better use this example as like, well, he only got 6 games because of how bad the stuff is. We're going to fix it now. That's the only real way that they can try to save their face at this point, is doing something like that.
And look, let's be real. Let's be honest. I know we have to speak in the proper manner, only talk about what we know. He's a professional athlete.
Yes.
His biggest asset is his body and his health.
Yes.
That's his only negotiating chip is his body.
Himself.
He goes, my body can do things other people's body can't do. My body can throw so many touchdowns, run for so many yards, help you win so many games. He was contacting masseuses with limited experience, no experience, finding them randomly on Instagram, lying to them, saying he was just trying to support Black businesses. Look, he's a sicko. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We can all sit here and say there's no proof that he did. We know he did it. All right.
Yeah, I think the Arian Foster quote is perfect of when in that interview. The average NFL player goes through 3 their whole career. 3
and most of the time, it's
career.
because either that person moves or you move to a different team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's if he was really trying to find someone, he wouldn't, like Tim said, be going through Instagram or whatever it was to find a masseuse. If he wanted to find a really good masseuse, he'd probably ask teammates or every team has
literally
one.
anything. Yeah.
Like every team
I mean,
has a
come on,
masseuse
guys.
there.
I mean, he's literally was at one point the most talked about quarterback in the league. I mean, how does he not have friends with, celebrities, icons, whatever it may be, and be like, oh, you use that person? Great. Let's sign it up. They're all women too. Like, that's what throws it off too. I mean, I think this is kind of ridiculous in the sense that also we can't label this as a example period. We've done that before. The NFL has done that. We've been through that, being like, oh, we'll move on and learn from our mistake. No, this is becoming, as much as this is a story about Deshaun Watson and the type of person that he is, now it's a huge story on the NFL and what type of organization and business that they are. Because they have 3 days to respond, and I will not stress enough on that. They have 3 days to make this right. If they don't make a move here, that is terrible, especially for the time that we live in. And I think nothing but if they don't do anything about it going forward, just bad blood. I don't see why people would want to work in the NFL.
We're either going to have a conversation next week, either really applauding the NFL or tearing them down more than we already have.
And let's not forget, this has all the headlines because it's a player and it's a good player. What no one's talking about is what's going on in Washington. Like, they've been subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress. And luckily for the NFL, this has taken up all the news. But that is 10 times worse. I mean, Dan Snyder has been on a yacht in the south of France for like a month, avoiding the United States Congress.
Yeah, not a great couple months for the NFL, to say the least.
Yeah,
and there's a nationally televised football game on Thursday.
Yeah.
Something needs to be figured out by the time that game kicks off.
Exactly. Well, boys, a little tough topic to start off the football segment, but thank you for giving your opinion on that. That being said, let's get into what basically is going on right now, and that's training camp, guys. It's underway, been underway for about a week now. All the teams have been reported to camp. That being said, I need to go and get your guys' opinion. What's been the best moment of training camp so far from any team that you've seen? Ben, since you're on the bottom, let's start with you.
I mean, I have two, I guess, that really have stood out. One is just all the attention Drake London's getting in Atlanta. I mean, I've seen some highlights already, and I've heard a lot saying that this guy's going to be a star. That he's just out muscling guys. He may not be, the Diggs type where he's breaking ankles or whatever he's doing, but if you throw the ball up, he's gonna go up and get it. I heard him and Pitts kind of been doing both that, where if it's even in their vicinity and there's a corner or whatever on them, they're still coming away with it. So Drake London, like I know the Falcons are not going to be a good team. Let's be real, but I like to be able to see them have young guys that are showing out and their picks that they, think that they want to develop are developing at least at a good rate so far in their career. So I think that's definitely one, even though it's not really the best franchise. And the second one, I mean, as a Bills fan, we've been hearing about it for plenty of time this past 2 weeks, is the Tua to Tyreek Hill connection. And look, don't get me wrong, yeah, it is, shocking to say the least, but again, I'm sorry, it is training camp at the end of the day. Let's take a step back here.
Pads aren't even on.
Huh?
Pads aren't even on yet.
Yeah, pads aren't even on. I mean, the first day at the Bills practice with pads on, we got in a little scuffle. Allen may have overreacted there a little bit. That's one thing with Jordan Phillips tapping him lightly and Allen kind of hitting him in the face. And let's just say that day for Dolphins fans was the best. They had the long touchdown to Tua, and then they had Allen getting in a fight with with the defense. It was like, oh, Allen's a bad leader. Tua's the GOAT. It was a great day for Dolphins.
I'll tell you this, Ben. Jordan Phillips he sucks. As a person who watched Jordan Phillips here and then watched Jordan Phillips when he got to Buffalo, like this is not a guy you want on your team. I think his first game back against Miami after he got cut, he made a play in the backfield and then was immediately flagged for excessive celebration because he was celebrating. Like I think it was a tackle for loss for 1 yard, like he had just won the Super Bowl.
I will say when he was in Buffalo, though, he was an animal. Like he was
9.5 sacks.
Yeah, he's not going to be a huge part of the D line. Don't get me wrong, but he'll be one of those rotational guys, those D tackles that can come in and rush the passer a little bit. I don't know who exactly we're going to see there next to Ed officially, like full time. So it could be him. Rousseau we might see lined up inside a little bit. Basham I've heard a little bit. So like there'll be a little competition, but I mean Jordan Phillips was a fan favorite in Buffalo, so I can't really say too much bad about him. I know when he was in Arizona, he was not great. Needless to say, not great at all.
I'm going to jump in real quick because you did take my training camp moment, which is that Josh Allen Jordan Phillips interaction, and I just want to break down a couple things real quick. The reason why that is such a big moment for me is the sign of the new identity, even though it may be a little bit old, is the new identity of the Bills' defensive line. This is huge in the sense of showing emotion, even if it's playful, and Allen going back at the defense. It shows emotion and authority for the number one defense that really does not benefit around the sack game at all. And if you're getting these old guys back in, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, who was another guy who left Buffalo, went out, got money, and didn't produce that much, comes back with Jordan Phillips. It just makes sense for them to be back together, and they do well in Brandon Beane's defensive scheme, Sean McDermott's defensive scheme, especially Leslie Frazier as well. But as I was getting to, I love seeing that there is a defensive identity and someone's trying to be outspoken besides Von Miller on that defensive line of being, hey, I don't give a shit. I mean, even though it's training camp, I'm here to get better. I'm here to do this. I don't think he's walking around trying to be Mr. Cocky or look at me, look at me. I think the guy's just trying to get better, especially for going out, getting a decent contract in Arizona, getting his money. Now he's like, I've got an opportunity to get this team back on track, especially this defensive line. who does not normally get to the quarterback consistently, I think it's a great step in the right direction for the Buffalo Bills defense. And I love that they're going at one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, or top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and considered an untouchable. Obviously, we don't want them weighing the body on a quarterback during training camp. But I love the little push, getting his head a little bit. That's going to bring the best out in the offense, defense, and special teams. Is just working at each other in training camp. So I think it's a great moment. A lot of Bills fans overreacted, said it was too much. I think it's great, especially for training camp. And Josh is a football guy. He loves that type of stuff. He needs to get hit a little bit.
And you've had even Diggs and
Davis
Elam getting into it a little bit, with
Yeah, well, after that, you saw like Gabe Davis come up and jump on the pile. I mean, if anything, let's be real, that's probably getting them back into high school days when they would have little fights and little breakouts. I mean, they're just competing. They're having a good time. I love to see it.
Yeah, I personally, I would say let's keep the $250 million quarterback upright.
A little push ain't going to do nothing. Plus, it's a, 6'5", 240-pound quarterback. I don't think doing this is going to do much to him,
What did you say, Ben? I heard that.
So he's about 2'2" is tall and 3'2" is thick.
Hey, I see y'all quivering in your boots. I see it.
All right.
Bills fans up in arms. All right. Hey, Shane, do you want to go?
All right, this is off the top of my head, but me and Ben need to go to Miami. I think it's like week 3. We need to go do a live reaction stream of this. Tim, you coming?
I'll be in Tallahassee. I think when the Dolphins play the Bills
this
year,
make it one Sunday.
I'll be turning on Red Zone, watching other games. Josh Allen is officially my boogeyman, and I just don't need to see him play the Dolphins anymore. Y'all can have the 2 wins. We'll worry about the other 15 games. Y'all can have those.
That's fair. The thing I've definitely been intrigued by, and this is just going to my team, right? So obviously the Steelers, George Pickens specifically, obviously, he's had a hell of a camp, which I'm not surprised by because the guy's freaky, just as a player in general. The stuff he's able to do with his body down the sideline, contested catch situations, all that stuff is what we really need in this offense. We haven't had that for a while now. Johnson's a great, separator and route runner. Chase has really good after the catch ability when he can get the ball in his hands, but Pickens is that true deep threat in the sense that you can throw the ball up to him and he's consistently going to win those situations. And nothing has changed, from his evaluation so far. He's doing exactly that in camp. So seeing him do that's awesome. The quarterback situation has got me a little bit messed up right now just because I keep only hearing good things about mostly Mason Rudolph, which gives me hives. I'm tired of it. I don't need to hear his name anymore, frankly. It's just not something that has to happen. But Trubisky's still getting the first team reps. He's played a lot better, especially this practice today, and Pickett's starting to heat up a little bit too. So I'm hoping that it really ends up being about those 2 guys more than anything else.
Outside of, obviously Drake Leonard and Kyle Pitts, is there another duo outside of George Pickens and Chase Claypool who's stronger at wide receiver? Is there a better combo of throw it up guys outside of Pitts and London?
It's going to be interesting because I don't think Chase is going to be that type of player this year at all. I think he's going to be the primary slot receiver, which is what I've wanted him to be really since midway through last year. Because again, he has all the physical tools to be a dominant outside receiver, but he's a tight end convert really from Notre Dame. He's really better with the ball in his hands and being able to run at that point, not so much getting down the field. His body control comes and goes, it feels like. Sometimes he just ends up on the ground randomly. I'm not really sure what that's about when he's running routes down the field. So for me, I think he'll be more effective and more productive in the slot with Pickens on the outside and Deontay on the outside as well. That's what I'm hoping, that the 3 receiver lineup, that's how I'm hoping they line them up most of the time this year.
Yeah, who knows? Someday maybe they could be the Mike Evans and Julio Jones of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is now.
Yeah. Speaking of wide receivers, my topic talked about a receiver too. We all heard about the Deebo Samuel extension, and I find it funny that this has been going on for so long, and it finally gets done on the dotted line after Deebo hasn't been practicing, and San Francisco's offense has looked atrocious. I've heard there's been about 6 to 8 interceptions in camp so far, and I think it was really important to get Deebo back because this is a 49ers offense that in the last couple years since their Super Bowl run has lost so much. I mean, even on the coaching staff. Back in the Super Bowl run, it was Shanahan as the head coach and offensive coordinator. And then the pass game coordinator and run game coordinators are Mike LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, both gone. LaFleur with the Jets, McDaniel, coming down to Miami with the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Alex Mack, great center, fits the offense perfectly. He retires.
Yeah.
They were able to replace Joe Staley with Trent Williams, which is great. But in the wide receiver room, that Super Bowl run had Emmanuel Sanders. He's gone. In the running back room, Raheem Mostert, tore up the playoffs that year. He's gone now.
Yeah.
The Packers especially. I got nightmares about that, man.
I'm sure.
And now, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo's gone too. There is not a lot of continuity outside of George Kittle and Kyle Shanahan. So I think it's really nice now that Trey Lance could have the ultimate security blanket in Deebo Samuel. He's got to be the only receiver now with rushing incentives in his contract. And I know that was a big thing. He didn't want to be running the ball in between the tackles because that's how you get banged up. And I think that's a big reason he went with the 3-year contract too. And I'm pretty sure they wanted a 3-year contract as well, because if they keep just handing him the ball, he's not going to be a 29-year-old. His body might be 32, 33, which is why the incentives have to be in there. Because if I'm him, I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm not taking the ball in between the tackles until you guys give me my money. So I think this is great for Trey Lance, because I love Trey Lance. I think he was a great prospect, great physical tools, but he's got a lot stacked against him now, obviously, with Alex Mack gone, with a lot of the brain trust gone on the coaching staff. Jimmy Garoppolo's there now, but when the season starts, he won't be, right? He's going to be looking at Nate Sudfeld for guidance. And this is a guy who's played, I think he played in 2 games last year? He has 2 or 3 starts. Those are his only starts since January of 2020, I think, because North Dakota State played one game in the COVID season.
Yeah, random 1-game scenario, which is something else.
Deebo being back on the field is huge for San Francisco. I think it's great for both sides to get the deal done.
I will say, speaking of Shanahan, I saw that the Patriots were trying to run their offense, a little bit of Shanahan's offense, and I heard it did not go well at all.
I heard the final 3 plays were -1 yard, 0 yards, -1 yard, and it was the first team offense against the third team defense.
Oh, hey, I'm not going to root for anybody to fail individually, but I will definitely root for the Patriots as an organization to fail.
Amen on that. Well, that's a good wrap up there for training camp. We got one more topic today, and it's a recurring topic that we've just started this past week. It's the Madden ratings. We've got the running backs right now. I would say it's a pretty solid list, in my opinion, actually. I think they did it pretty well here. I would say at least in the top 5. But obviously some other pieces missing. But I do think Derrick Henry, based off of, just his freakishly big body and how he can get into the open field and accelerate, obviously he's going to be your number 1 guy. I think he could have been potentially a candidate for the 99 club. I think he almost is every year, but 97 isn't too bad. I do like Nick Chubb, though, at number 2, for sure. He's a very consistent back. He does have a really good offensive line to work with. So that's interesting. And then we have Christian McCaffrey, which, it's a little bit we've talked about this before. Is he a top 5 back when he's healthy? Possibly, yes. But will he be healthy? That's what's being determined. And for the amount of games that he played last year, should he even be ranked this high? So I'll let it to you guys. What do you guys think of the rankings?
I don't love them. I think the top 5 is the correct players, except for maybe I would switch in somebody who I think is really low is Eckler. I think Eckler at 80, 88, under Aaron Jones, Kamara's at a 90. Again, he's obviously could be a little higher too, but Joe Mixon I think is a little too high. But if you're for me, when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, I think it's a fair rating also because you have Dalvin Cook there, who also gets injured a lot at 94. So I think it's fair. I probably would have put him a touch below Jonathan Taylor, and maybe even put Jonathan Taylor over Nick Chubb. It's a very close one to me, but I think Taylor overall is better, but he's also younger. So that could be a reason why they put him lower. But yeah, the one that really is kind of shocking to me is Austin Eckler, because I think Austin Eckler is one of the most slept on running backs in the league when it comes to just his skill level and what he puts in and puts out. I mean, he can do it out of the backfield. He can run the ball in between the tackle. He can really do a lot of different things for your offense. So I think Eckler's one. Aaron Jones, I mean, I think it's a good spot for him, but Mixon I think is a little too high. But I think they messed up outside the top 10.
Do we lose Ben?
I think we may have lost Ben here for a second. So until he returns, which we'll give him a little bit to do so, we'll get back into his argument. But anybody else want to take over between Tim and Shane?
Yeah, I think Kamara's a little criminally underrated here. I mean, Kamara for a large portion of the last year and a half was the Saints offense, especially last year when Michael Thomas was out and, they were playing the three of us at quarterback. And obviously Teron Armstead missed a couple games too. I mean, who was it? It was Alvin Kamara and Hope. That's what they were throwing out on offense every week. I mean, put Sean Payton in the Hall of Fame for that offense scoring anything. I mean, really, I think their wide receiver one at one point last year was Traquan Smith. And they were moving pretty well as an offense. I think they beat Tampa without Jameis Winston. I think Simeon finished the game. I think Winston went out in the first half. And they won that game. The other guy that I think definitely needs to be in the top 10.
There it is.
Are we absolutely positive the Browns don't have 2 of the 10 best running backs in the league?
Yeah.
I don't think they get enough reppage, to really determine if they are. I mean, obviously we've seen Kareem Hunt and what he can do in the previous situation in Kansas City. But does he get enough reps? And once again, also being out for some games, kind of hard to judge. Or at least, give the other guys who have been playing a full season a better opportunity to get rated. But yeah, I agree with you there, dude. I mean, both of those two are so dynamic.
And they're going to get a lot of work those first 6 games because I watched Kobe Brissett for a month last year, and you're better off turning around and handing it off every play.
Shoop, now that you're back, I don't remember if you know where you were with your train of thought, but if you want to take it over, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I was just kind of saying that I think they messed up more outside the top 10 than they did inside the top 10. I see why that each player is rated where they're at in the top 10. Besides Eckler, I think is the only one that I think is a little too low. But like Leonard Fournette is higher than Najee Harris, David Montgomery by 2 or 3 points. Like this isn't like it's 1 point. It's like right there. It's just shocking to me having Saquon even over David Montgomery and Najee Harris. I'm sorry, but he has not proven to me yet to be back up to an 86. I mean, there's a lot of question marks. I think it's just they're always going to mess some stuff up. I mean, you have J.K. Dobbins above James Conner. I mean, I get J.K. Dobbins has high expectations, especially coming off that injury, but James Conner was one of the best goal line backs in the league last year, if not the best. So you have him at an 81 tied with Tony Pollard. Devin Singletary, I'm sorry, but Devin Singletary is not close to James Conner, in my opinion.
Devin Singletary even going to start?
Yeah, exactly. He might not even start. I mean, Miles Sanders, you have an 82. Damian Harris, like even Javonte Williams below Melvin Gordon is ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of crazy to me seeing some of these ratings. Just like what are they thinking here? With DeAndre Swift is at an 80. That is unbelievable to me. So, I mean,
I think it does come down to, though, is how much playing time these people get. I think that's where the standard and the process of rating people should start, at least based on their physiques, is do they even last a full season? I think from there, then you start to give ratings out. We've talked about Saquon Barkley. You've talked about Saquon Barkley. Dude hasn't been healthy. Like that's part of being good. I've stated that over, almost every stream we've done is part of being a good athlete and a good player, whether it's football, soccer, whatever it may be, is staying healthy. So I don't see how you can rank a guy above so many of these other guys who've been playing consistently, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why you would put a guy like Saquon back up there. I don't have too much trouble with this top 10, but I'll let you guys continue on and give your opinion.
Ben, you mentioned Miles Sanders. I mean, I think it came out yesterday. He's getting second team reps. I mean, Kenny Gainwell is literally taking his job.
I think the thing that's most interesting with this list for me, like the thing that sticks out to me immediately is Ezekiel Elliott's not a top 10 running back at this point.
I agree.
I don't think he's a top 10 running back. I think
No burst.
Tony Pollard's a better running back on that team right now, right? As it stands. That's what I personally think. Now, that doesn't mean that he's bad, but top 10 is pretty lofty for some of the backs we have in the league right now. I will say having Derrick Henry still at number 1, just because the only guy that really truly competed with him last year prior to him getting hurt obviously was Taylor. So I get not putting Taylor immediately above him, but him still being number 1 is interesting because I don't think that's going to last. I just don't think he can continue to take the amount of carries that he's gotten. And we saw that a little bit last year. I'm hoping that doesn't impact his season next year with his foot injury and everything, but he's approaching 30. He's a bruising running back, obviously 245 pounds. Like, his play style is going to naturally kind of lend to him starting to slow down a little bit, hoping it won't be for another year or two, see if we can get maybe another 1,900 yard season out of him.
I believe the Titans also did lose 2 offensive linemen.
Yes,
I think they did
too.
add Sheriff from Washington, but
that was
I think their O-line's getting a lot worse. I agree.
Yeah. But so that doesn't help either. Chubb is probably right now maybe the best pure runner, period. Like, if you're just talking about everything that there is about running the football, outside, inside, speed, but like everything, he might be the best pure runner at this point, because Henry's an interesting player just because of the way he runs, but he's not a shifty player. He's not really good at a lot of different types of runs. It's mostly that get going and get up the seam and find a seam up the middle and take off, and no one can catch you then once he gets up to speed. So I think versatility wise as a runner, Chubb definitely deserves to be the number 2 back. I struggle with McCaffrey just because, like you said, Matt, like, it does matter if you're healthy. But I think the problem with the ratings too is if you have a player who played 4 games, but they were a 96 overall in those 4 games, there's not really a way to lower their ratings without making them a worse player, even though they didn't show they're worse, if that makes sense. So I kind of give them a little bit of leeway there. And then guys like Eckler, because you mentioned, Ben, too, like, the reason I think that he's rated where he's at is not so much because he shouldn't be rated higher, but because they're not giving him the same running attributes that they are Chubb and Taylor, Cook, those guys who are really pure running backs as well as effective in the receiving game. Whereas Eckler is maybe the best receiver at running back outside of McCaffrey when he's healthy, and maybe Kamara. So that's probably why that discrepancy is there.
Yeah, and I believe Tim even mentioned earlier, which running back? Kareem Hunt. I think you were getting at that a little bit, just of how well he's done, but doesn't get the reps. So very important to see just how these guys are rated around their reps and how they get their scores in general. It's always going to be up for debate. I always think it's kind of funny pulling in a guy like Cordero Patterson. I mean, where are we ranking him under? Wide receiver, tight end, running back? It seems like the guy can do it all. So just give him a solid 90. He can do everything.
They need to create like an offensive weapon category in Madden where like it's players that like you don't want to fit into receiver or running back, but it lets them play different things depending on where you put them at. Like,
you got like
that would be
Cordero and Debo in there,
right?
I think Debo would be winning that conversation. But then, like, Cordero
sure.
would be like right there at number 2.
Yeah, for sure. Just guys who can do a bunch of different stuff would be cool. But
well, boys, that's going to end our football topic for the day. And thank you guys for joining me for football. I think who's doing basketball today? I think we just got Ben and Tim. All 3 of you. So I'm the only one leaving. That being said, I'm out for the rest of the show. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll give it to these boys for basketball. See ya.
See ya.
Hey, Matty. All right, boys, we got some NBA to talk about. Got some, not too much news. This is the point in the offseason where free agents have the top guys have already kind of signed. Big trades kind of already happened. There's some talks here and there. But we're going to start it off with some sad news. Some very sad news is the legend, the man himself, Bill Russell, passed away at the age of 88. I mean, there's not really much you can say that he didn't do during his career on and off the court.
hmm
I mean, he was a player and a coach at the same time for 3 years.
Yeah.
He's an 11-time champion, 5-time MVP. I mean, you go down the list with rebounding champions, all NBA first team, second team, all star. Like you go down the list, and there's just a million different things that he's done, and not even to mention off the field what he has done. What
Yeah.
did Bill Russell mean to you guys, just winning wise, on the court, off the court, just at all? What did your overall thoughts of just him passing away at age 88, including the fact that he also had an award named after him? So what do you guys think?
I mean, there's no one who works in basketball or just enjoys basketball that doesn't know a debt to Bill Russell. I mean, everything we love about this sport, I mean, guys like him, guys like Wilt, guys like Jerry West, like they sacrificed back then. They got paid what today would be pennies, you know?
Mhm.
They flew commercial. And then for guys like Bill, it was even worse, right?
Yeah.
Playing in a city like Boston in the 1950s and 60s. And he's talked about that. He hasn't been shy about that.
Mhm.
You know, everything he did off the court. I mean, everyone who plays in the NBA today owes him a debt. The league would not be what it is today without these guys that went through the struggle and built the game, really. I mean, there's a reason the game looks totally different now than it did back in the 60s. And you just want to talk about on the court. I mean, I think we all understand if blocks were a stat, him and Wilt would probably have double what Hakeem Olajuwon, who has the blocks record. I think
Yeah.
he's at about 3,800.
Something like that. Yeah.
I read an article that, out of the 100 games that are available to watch of Wilt and Bill Russell, they each averaged over 8 blocks a game in those 100 games. I mean, come on, he'd have 6,000 blocks easily. And again, something like that, revolutionizing defense, something that doesn't even get talked about. He's the greatest winner ever. He's the first African-American coach in the history of North American sports. I mean, you want to talk about the term trailblazer? There's no one like Bill Russell.
I think when you're looking at Bill, the thing that you think about is just one, iconic, right? Because you can't think, even with a great team like the Celtics have been in NBA history, it all goes back to him, right? That's where it all started. And obviously the era was different and people tried to talk about like, oh, there wasn't that many teams, but it's like, I don't care if there's 4 teams. If you win 11 championships in 13-year stretch, like what you can't say anything about that, right? Like there's just, you can't argue with me about it and say like, oh, well, it didn't mean that much. It's like, yeah, it meant plenty still. Like you can't really make that argument to me. But more importantly, he was the maybe the best example, especially from his era, of what an athlete can mean to America, right? How they can affect it, how they can have change in America through the way that they play, the way that they act, the things that they choose to do. He was one of the first guys really that you could see make a true change to things and make sure that it's better for, like you said, the next generation of NBA players or just next generation of people in general. And I think he'll be remembered just as much for that by a lot of people as he was as a basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the time we're 50s, 60s,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Russell will be more known as what he did off the court than what he did on the court, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very
I
possible.
mean, you look at the stats, yes, 15 points a game, 22 rebounds per game is unbelievable. And then if Tim, what you were saying, 8 blocks a game, that's if anybody did even close to that nowadays, they'd be like, this guy is he's got to be on steroids.
Yeah.
But no, Bill
ridiculous.
Russell was just doing that against those guys. He was a guy, and then off the court, he gets a Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. I mean, he really is one of those guys that you look at and are like, wow, like he didn't waste any time when he was alive, trying to do the right thing, trying to do everything. It's just, it really is crazy to see what he can do as a player, coach, activist. It's just everything. I mean, and he always was one of those guys also that no matter how old he was also the guys making jokes too all the time. I mean,
He might be one of the funniest people ever in basketball. It's just the fun, like the stuff he says to people. And stuff.
Most
I'm blanking
recognizable laugh in sports.
who did he
too.
flip off at one of the award shows?
Oh, that and Barkley too. I think he flipped off.
Yeah,
Charles
it's like
too.
just so nonchalant.
Just randomly.
So I mean, as a Celtics fan, especially like myself being a Celtics fan, when you think about this like Celtics, you don't think of Bill Russell immediately, right? You think of Bird or Paul Pierce or KG, right? Like Bill Russell, yeah, he's up there. He's top 5 easily when you think about the Celtics, when people think about the Celtics. But like that's the thing is when you think of those other types of players, Larry Bird, KG, Paul Pierce, you only think about what they did on the court. You only think, oh, when they were in a Celtics jersey or
What did they
obviously
do?
Nets
Yeah.
jersey for a little bit, what did they do like on the court? No, when you think of Bill Russell, that's the number one thing is it wasn't just what he did on the court, and people will forever be changed. Like Tim said, people will still owe a debt to him no matter what. In 20 years they will, in 30 years they will, in 60 years they will, because of what this guy did for the game. So I mean, it's definitely sad because I mean, he just did so much for the game. On top of the fact that everybody thought he was doing well the past couple months. I don't know if you guys saw that video of him at the finals where he waited for like almost every fan to leave so people didn't have to see him in the shape that he was in. But I mean, 88 years old, man, that is a long life, and that's a great life. And Bill Russell definitely made his life one of the best there was. So I mean, I don't know if you guys got anything left else to say about Bill Russell.
Hope to see every team wearing patches this upcoming season.
I
Yes.
hope so too. I'm sure they're already coming up with something for that, but
Yes. All right. So we will move on. I know we're starting both topics today off with kind of some
downer
sad
stuff. Yeah.
news. But so the next topic we're going to get into is the KD rumors. Another trade. Now it's the Celtics.
You guys see the quote?
Oh, go ahead.
Anonymous general manager saying he trade Jason Tatum for Kevin Durant.
Well, I'll go last. As a Celtics fan, I'll go last with this one.
Okay.
So let's go with Shane. You'll set the center at the top. You go first, and we'll go Shane, Tim, me. Shane, what do you think about KD to the Celtics? And do you think it's the most realistic destination for him, or do you think it's going to be elsewhere?
To me at this point, I have a sneaking suspicion whether it's because just no one's willing to give up enough or they can convince him otherwise. I think he's going to be a net this year still. And that might change, following the season, even maybe during the season, depending on how the season goes. But I just have a sneaking suspicion that he's going to be a net when the season starts. But the Celtics do seem to be the team that's being talked about the most, and I don't think that's a coincidence from what we've heard about it. But the problem with it ultimately is if you have to give up Brown or Tatum and a bunch of other things as well, because it's not just going to be either one of those guys, realistically. I just don't think that it's going to move the needle enough by bringing him in if you have to lose one of your core players or maybe 2 or 3 of them, as well as future picks, which that really doesn't matter as much if you're the Celtics because you hope to be good. But I don't know if that guarantees you a better chance of a title this year, the next year, the next couple of years than it would if you keep building around this core. And I don't think it's enough of because the upside isn't there as much as I think it could be for other teams if they made this trade. I would rather them not do that and just continue to build what they already have here.
I don't see this making sense for Boston, right? Jason Tatum's I'm not even a big Tatum guy, but Jason Tatum's a legit 3-level scorer, and I think his defense has become a little bit overrated, but he's definitely a plus defender. The man can defend, and it also helps them there's great defenders around him, just like everyone on the Celtics. They can all defend except maybe Peyton Pritchard. But yeah. Kevin Durant is no longer a 3-level scorer, and he's no longer a plus defender. He can defend. His length helps him out with that a lot. Mm-hmm. But he can't get to the basket anymore the way he used to. I mean, the Achilles really took out a lot of the burst in his game. His paint points aren't limited to floaters and that one-legged fade, which is still lethal. Right? His floater and his one-legged fadeaway as good as anyone else's in the league. But we have seen if your best player needs to be able to score from all 3 levels, right? Why did the Suns get embarrassed in the way they did? Because they take mid-range jumpers more than anyone else in the league. That they don't get to the basket. Why did the Celtics beat Miami? The only guy on Miami who can score at all 3 levels consistently is Tyler Hero. And he was out, and when he was in, he wasn't any good. Kevin Durant is no longer that player. Jason Tatum is that player. Jaylen Brown is also that player. I wouldn't give up either one of them to Kevin Durant because they're also still super young, right? The Celtics window is open for a long time. right? The Al Horford situation is going to play out for the next few years, but at some point they'll likely transition to a one big man lineup anyway with Robert Williams. They're not going to keep trotting out 2 7-footers. Now, of course, if I'm Brooklyn, this is the team I'm calling
Yeah.
the most.
Yeah, you want to get a deal done with Brooklyn. Yeah.
Who else
with the
can
Celtics.
give you a 24-year-old all-star outside of Miami? And they've already told you you're not getting Bam. And even if you wanted
No.
Bam, you can't get him because of the rule 2 max rookie contract players traded for. Then you have a whole nother bag of worms called who the hell wants Ben Simmons?
Yeah.
Kevin Durant, despite having a no trade clause, is the type of player with the influence to where it kind of is like he has a no trade clause.
Mhm.
Everyone in the league listens to Kevin Durant. If they send Kevin Durant somewhere to die, they're never going to get another free agent. No one's ever going to trust them again because Kevin Durant's got a lot of influence around the league. Young guys look up to Kevin Durant, right? When these guys were in middle school, he was winning scoring titles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see a world where the Celtics are even interested in this.
Yeah.
And if they are, it has to be, I mean, if you're going to give up one of them, it has to be because they're also getting Simmons back, which again creates a whole new problem of making the salaries worse, which means Horford probably's got to be in the trade. And I know damn well the Celtics don't want to trade out Horford. He's the heart and soul of that team. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me for Boston.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where, yeah, the Celtics probably called, Nets probably called them. They'll probably talk a little bit, but I think it's one of those, it's being blown out of proportion type of things, because I think Tim, I think you both nailed it. But Tim, you brought up the point of why would we trade 2 young? It doesn't make sense for the Celtics. Why would we trade either of them who are several years younger? Who, yes, don't get me wrong, both are worse right now than Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is the better basketball player, or best basketball player out of those 3, Tatum, Brown, and KD, right now. But in 2 years, 3 years, are we going to have that same answer? Maybe.
Even by the end of this year.
Yeah, by the end of this year, we might not. Like, it's going to be a massive maybe due to the injuries that KD has had. And you've seen him start to slow down. He's not LeBron, who LeBron seems to somehow get better year after year and improve another area of his game. KD is not improving any more areas of his game. He's staying around the same or getting worse in certain areas, in my opinion. He's not a big body guy. Another injury like that could happen very quickly. Why would moving, especially Tatum is the one where it doesn't even come close to making sense. Brown, I can understand a little more because he was the second option this year, and the man cannot dribble the ball.
Best player ever who can't dribble.
Yeah, best player ever to not be able to dribble. That's Jaylen Brown. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to get younger, and then in 2-3 years, who's going to be the better player? We don't know. KD's 33, 34, I think, at this point, right? I mean,
15. Yeah.
At 34 years old, coming off of an Achilles injury not coming off, but he's had Achilles injuries. He's had plenty of injuries recently that it's like, is he going to be that same player? Is he worth that much money for the next however long you want to keep him? It just doesn't make too much sense to me. I think that's the one thing hurting the Nets right now is they came out thinking, oh, we're going to get so much from this guy. We're going to be able to get anything we want because it's KD. When in reality, this isn't the KD that was on the 2017 Warriors. This isn't the KD that was on the 2011 OKC team that went to the finals. This isn't that KD, in my opinion. I do not think that's about as good of a KD. I think he's going to continue to slow down. And honestly, he could be one of those guys that in 2 years says, you know what, I'm retiring. I would not be shocked because it seems like as much as he loves the game, I'm not questioning how much he loves the game because everybody knows KD absolutely loves the game of basketball. It's just more of, is he going to keep wanting to put his body through this? Is he going to want to keep putting up with these fans criticizing his every move when he's in the offseason? It's every little thing. Can KD do this? Can KD do that? Because, I mean, yeah, he's won 2 championships, but they are probably the most hated on championships ever. I mean, people still to this day say KD is not a winner. He may have 2 rings, but people don't think he's a winner because he was on the greatest team ever. He joined the greatest team, at least regular season statistically wise. He joined that
Right.
team, and they got worse in the regular season, which I guess is understandable because 73-9 is very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't the one getting double teamed. That was Steph. You know,
Or triple teamed.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, it just doesn't make any type of sense to me for the Celtics to do this. I think as of now, as time goes on, if you would ask me a month ago, no way I say he ends up in a Nets jersey starting the season. But now, I don't really know what team's going to want him, or what team you can make a trade with that will give up close to what you're looking for.
The
So-
presence of Ben Simmons really hurts because of
Yeah.
the rule.
Yeah.
And it'd be different if it was Ben Simmons, a year ago today when he was coming off the disappointing playoff series, but he had been on the court,
Yes.
in the last calendar year. Now, I think the last time Ben Simmons was on the court, it's now over 12 months ago because
Mm-hmm.
second round last year was played in June. It was pushed back a little bit. So we're talking about 13, 14 months. Season doesn't start for another 2.5 months. We're going to be going on a year and a half that Ben Simmons hasn't played basketball and has had back surgery during this time somehow and has been on 2 teams in this time somehow. Where is the place that takes Ben Simmons? I mean, the most logical one would be if you really want Bam Adebayo, okay, you have to give us Ben Simmons back because we can do the same things on defense with Bam that we do with Ben. But again, it's going to be 18 months without basketball when he steps on the court. It's a team that was just a game away from the final, a shot away from the finals. Going to make that risk? No. Then you go to Phoenix, his other preferred destination. You have to send Simmons back because of the now DeAndre Ayton contract. Because you can't have both Ayton and Simmons on the team. What does Simmons do for the Phoenix Suns? They have a point guard. So then you go to the whole idea of playing him at the 4 as a slasher and a cutter and let him run your defense. It's wonky. And then if he doesn't have the ball on offense and he's only operating as a slasher, well, okay, he's a great athlete, right? He's going to get past me. If we're both standing in the corner, cool, I'll give you 5 feet of space, 10 feet of space. I'll stand in the paint while you're in the corner. Because not only will you not make the shot, you won't even shoot it.
No.
He is really killing any chance of the Nets getting a favorable package back and Kevin Durant going where he wants to go. Like the options are like 3 teams, and one of them is the Lakers. If the Nets just want to say complete rebuild, Lakers, give us every pick you can, plus Max Christie, plus Scottie Pippen Jr., I guess, and Austin Reeves and the Russ contract so that we can clean our books next year. That would have to be a last resort for the Nets. That would have to be a Kevin Durant says, I will burn this thing to the ground if I'm on this roster opening day. So Simmons and the fact that, look, it'd be different if the Celtics just buzzed through the playoffs and shut everybody down, right? But in every series, except the first one, the best player on the other team went for 40 at least once, sometimes twice on the Celtics, right? It wasn't like they just completely went out and shut down every superstar they faced. They shut down one. Because, again, even Kyrie, was it game 1 he had 40 or game 2?
I think it was game 1.
Where he was giving the bird to the crowd, right? Everyone went off against the Celtics at least once in like a million playoff games they played, except the man on the screen.
Yep.
He was the one that was shut down. It's evident he's not the same Kevin Durant he used to be. Still a hell of a basketball player. Still probably one of the 10 best in the world. Probably still the best scorer on planet Earth. One of the best, if not the best ever. But he is no longer the Kevin Durant of old. And that makes this package very hard to go with the whole Simmons aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just doesn't make any sense. You swept the guy in 4 games in the first round of the playoffs. Why are you now going to trade for him and give up a piece that helped you get to the finals last year?
I think that's definitely why I mentioned when I first started talking about it that I'm going to be very surprised if he doesn't start the season with the Nets.
Yeah. I mean,
and remember before all this happened, it was the Kevin Durant's going to bring back the biggest package ever.
Yep.
A team that I would say don't sleep on before they traded all their draft picks was Atlanta.
Yeah, I could have seen
Now,
them making a move like that.
If this wants to get done, I mean, you got to really, really hope the Nets just really like John Collins and Onyeka.
Yeah, like a lot. Yeah, a whole
Does
lot.
anyone like John Collins and Onyeka Okongwu that much to give up Kevin Durant?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'll tell you one team that, or one group of fans that does is the Atlanta Hawks. Who, I mean, I've seen it mixed. It's mixed. I think some really don't want him on the team. Some really love him. But that does kind of segue into our last segment that we're going to get into, which I think we'll just go right into because I think we can all agree KD to the Celtics probably
Not
not going to happen.
I
This
bet
isn't
not,
2016 anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't really make too
No.
much sense. But
Yeah.
that does get us into our last subject, which is we're going to do a top 5 of the trios in the East. So would that be a trio then if KD goes to the Celtics? Then you'd have what? Tatum, KD, and Smart or whatever.
Slash
But right
Robert
now,
Williams, yeah,
that's
I
not a
think so.
trio. This trio that we're talking about right now, they tore up the Drew League, the crossover. It was John Collins, DeJounte Murray, and Trae Young, the brand new trio in Atlanta. There are a lot of other trios, though, in this league. So we're going to go through our top 5 trios in the league. Let's just each...
Are we doing
let's
the
each go
league
through
or
our
the
list.
East? Because I actually kept mine to the East.
Yeah, I got mine
Yes,
in
that's
the
what-
East. Yeah,
Just in the East, yes. Just in the
gotcha.
East.
Okay, cool.
So we'll start. How do you guys want to do this? Do we want to do this where we each go with our 5th and then we work down, or you just go top 5, top 5, top 5?
We could each give our 5, then our 4, then our 3.
Okay. So let's go with Shane since you're on the top again. Who do you have at number 5 in the East trios?
This trio on the screen right now, I have Young, Collins, and Murray at 5 right now, just because I like the fit. Right now, like the idea of that fit, but obviously we need to see them play together. So they're kind of the de facto 5 for me because they're the most interesting of the teams that could be in that 5 spot for me. Everyone above them, I kind of have an expectation of what they should look like or what they've played like before.
Okay. What about you, Tim?
I like this trio too, but I did leave him out of the top 5
Fair.
for one reason, and it is because Trae Young and John Collins play no defense.
Fair enough.
Negative defense, if you want to call it.
especially Trae. But again,
And on top of that, John Collins is coming off of a regression year. I mean, that year where they went to the conference finals, there's a reason he got paid what he got paid. He was really good in that regular season and in their playoff run. But then he came back to earth. And Trae Young is still, to me, one of the best point guards in the game. But he did just get shut down into oblivion by the Miami Heat in the first round. Outside of the game 3 where he went off, he had the game winner and all that. But I mean, they really did shut him down. But the year before that, we can't just forget about the year before that.
Mhm.
These guys were 2 games away from the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
With Trae Young out for a good portion of that Eastern Conference Finals.
Mhm.
So I do like this trio, but my trio at 5 is a big name trio. It's the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey. We know all about Joel Embiid, MVP runner-up, All-NBA first team. One of the 2 best bigs in the league, guy he was competing with MVP with out in Denver. James Harden, not the scorer he used to be, doesn't have the burst he used to have. I would still say James Harden's one of the best facilitators in basketball. And I think a guy who's going to be doing a lot of facilitating too this year is Tyrese Maxey. Really came into his own towards the end of the year and in the playoffs, in that second round, in those games where Embiid was out. I mean, Maxey was their offense. And when Embiid came back, I mean, I think he had a game where he shot like 9 for 9 with almost all of them from 3. He was lighting it up. He's probably, I'd say, one of the 3 fastest players in basketball. Just a freaky athlete to go along with a great distributor like Harden and a dominant presence. Score, not all 3 levels of Joel Embiid can score because he can score in the paint, he can hit the mid-range jumper, and he's a really damn good 3-point shooter for a 7-footer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a solid number 5 right there. I do have these 3 on the screen in my top 5. I have them at 5, just like Shane, just due to the fact that we haven't seen him play yet. I think skill-wise, they're there. I am huge on DeJounte Murray. I mean, Trae Young, everybody knows what he can do. The question mark really is, again, John Collins. Can he become that third guy of a big 3? Can he make that trio a big 3? I don't know necessarily if they'll be a big three type of team. I mean, you obviously have two very young guys, and Young and Murray in the back, and as your guards with those two. So who is Collins going to be that third guy? We don't know yet. We have to see, can he come back and really improve upon what he did last season. We'll do this as a snake kind of draft
Yeah,
where
I
I
figured,
come
yeah.
back up. My number 4, however, Tim, don't get mad, but it is the Miami Heat. I have the Miami Heat. I would say it's Butler, Lowry, and Bam. Maybe Butler, Hero, Bam, but to me it doesn't make too much of a difference. I know that Lowry and Hero, or not Hero, are completely different style players, completely. But I would say it was Butler, Lowry, and Bam. I like them. I really do. The only thing that's killing me is the efficiency that they bring. Because that is one thing. Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, don't get me wrong, Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, especially that Eastern Conference Finals, oh my God, he didn't miss a shot. He just didn't miss. But he did
he's just
have
Michael
the
Jordan
worst,
when the lights get bright.
Yeah.
he did have, though, the worst efficiency from the field in the regular season when it came to minimum of 300 shot attempts. So that is one thing that I think led me to put him down a little bit. Maybe it's a little too low, but they got to the finals one year. They lost in the Eastern Conference Finals this past year. They have to just get put over the top there. And I think the guys that I have above them have either done enough to be ahead of them, or they haven't had enough time together yet to see if they are officially better than this trio. So I have the Heat at 4. Could change easily this upcoming year, but if you have Butler and Bam, that's already a better duo than most teams in this league. So that's my number 4, Miami Heat.
I also have the Miami Heat at 4. I have Tyler Hero as the third one, mainly because he's an ascending player. Took his scoring up big time this year. Again, he's the only guy on the team that can score at all 3 levels, but also has become a better ball handler and a better passer as the years have gone by. And that really showed in, when he was running the bench units and all that. He was not just the number 1 scorer, but the number 1 distributor when the bench came in. Bam, to me, is also an ascending player. If he can get his head screwed on right, he seems to literally look at the ground when he gets the ball, or just look elsewhere, not look at the basket. Game 5, I was there. We were begging him to do something with the ball, and he didn't. And then, of course, when they were down by 19 in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden, Bam scores like 12 straight points.
Right.
To make the game look a little bit closer. And it's just like, where was Game 3 Bam? That's my big problem with Bam. That Game 3 Bam, you get him once every 5 playoff games. I mean, he was a non-factor offensively for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Amazing defensive player, right? Yeah. I mean, to me, he should have been all defensive first teams, one of the best defenders in the league. And then, of course, Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy. Regular season, super inefficient. You're not wrong. A lot of hero ball happens in the regular season with Jimmy Butler. And then towards the playoffs, he doesn't even really want to score. He wants to distribute, but there are times when he's got to, turn it on, because Bam is not that guy. Kyle Lowry is 36. Tyler Hero's on the bench or out of the game during the conference finals. And then everyone else is just a spot-up shooter. Yeah. But what makes this group, to me, a top 4 group in the East is Butler and Bam defensively. I mean, like we talked about with Trae Young. Trae Young got suffocated. And it was mainly Kyle Lowry up until he got injured. But early, it was Jimmy Butler. Within 4 minutes of game 1 of the first round, Trae Young and Jimmy Butler were already going at each other. I mean, Heat culture is real, and no one embodies it more than Jimmy Butler.
So I almost had the Heat in this spot too. So that would have been pretty interesting if I had him before. But I'm going to go with Philly for my 4th spot. I think that the key thing with them is, obviously you have your superstar at this point with Embiid. You have top 3 MVP candidate probably for the next few years at least. Already has been for a while. A motivated James Harden, I think, makes this a top 4, top 5 unit with those 3, because when he wants to play, it seems like he can turn it on when he wants to. It just seems like lately he's had a lot of moments where he didn't want to do that. But him taking less money, him just saying, hey, just give me this deal and just figure everything else out. it feels like he is ready to buy into this team fully in this season coming up, which I think is going to elevate what we saw from him last year, especially in the playoffs. It was pretty rough a little bit. And then Maxi's an ascending player, right? So he's a guy that can kind of make up some of that scoring that Harden maybe can't do anymore. Not going to be getting the 40, 50-point triple doubles maybe anymore, but being the hub of the offense and letting Embiid play in the paint, obviously, as well, dominate there, letting Maxi score more than maybe even Harden will. I wouldn't be surprised if their scoring numbers were pretty similar, with Maxi maybe being more efficient, obviously. They really round each other's games out pretty well, I think. And as long as the guys around them can play up to a good level, they're going to be really tough to beat this year, I feel like.
Who do you have going at number 3? We'll just go right back to you, Shane.
Now we got the Heat. So I had to keep in my top 3. I am a fan of the team as well. So that's kind of, if you want to call me a little bit biased, that's fine. But and you said it, Tim, like the Bam and Jimmy combo on defense is just difficult to deal with no matter who you are. And a team that plays defense the way that they do is always kind of get a little bit of a bump for me, because defense is so much about effort and just the ability to stay with guys and not get beat consistently. It's a lot easier to turn that on all the time than it is your shot, because sometimes the shots just aren't falling no matter what you do. And Young had to deal with that. Like, as good of a scorer as he is, he could not get anything going against this team. And that's part of why, even if the efficiency isn't always there, like Ben mentioned with them too, with Butler especially, and yeah, I want to see Bam actually take control of games a little bit more this year offensively, hopefully, because he's capable of. We've seen it. It's just him wanting to be that guy and kind of taking some pressure off Jimmy especially. And then, yeah, like whether it's Lowry, Hero, whatever you want to consider the third guy there, I'm kind of leaning towards Hero at this point too, just because of his scoring ability. But it's just a tough team to deal with defensively, especially, and they can score enough when the bright lights show up too.
I'll say this about Trae Young. Sometimes he makes it really easy to shut him down.
Yeah.
This dude's got the worst shot selection I've ever seen.
It's crazy.
I mean, shot selection is an epidemic in basketball right now.
It is.
He is
Yeah.
the face. I mean, there are times, there's 18 seconds left on the shot clock. He's pulling up from the logo. He's literally walking the ball up and pulling from the logo. What are we doing? Let's run a set.
He's trying to be like Steph Curry.
There's only one Wardell.
People talk about Steph causing that, though, but it's really guys like Young, because Steph, the stuff he does is just different than other guys do. Not to get in a tangent with him, but like, one, there's a reason he does some of the stuff he does, because he knows it'll work. Whereas other guys, they have the ability to make those shots occasionally, but they're not dropping them at 40% clips like he does. So it's kind of still iffy to be doing that.
Yeah. Who do you got at your 3, Tim?
I cheated a little bit.
Oh,
it's the Nets. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons. Right?
All right.
I know they're probably never going to take the court together. But if they do,
yeah, exactly.
those are 2 of the best scorers to ever live, along with probably the most freaky defensive weapon you can have in the league outside of guys like Bam. Right? Like Ben Simmons is, for everything that's wrong with him, the one thing that is right with him is
defense ain't one of them, right?
The man can defend, right? Yeah. He's nearly 7 feet tall. He's very fast. He's strong. He's quick. Very high basketball IQ, and we can tell that because of the way he does play point guard at 7 feet. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving getting a little bit older, regressing a little bit. There's one thing both guys can still do. That's put the ball in the basket, and that's what wins. If they somehow all get together, coalesce, and get it right, this is a top 3 team in the East because they have a top 3 trio. And now, of course, rest of the roster stinks. Like, let's not
a little
overblow that. It's really bad. But those 3 guys, as good as most 3 guys that anyone in the league has.
Yeah, I almost put the Nets in my top 5, almost. The only thing with me was you got to be a functioning big group of 3 if you're going to be on this list. I mean, when healthy, yes, they were probably top 5 in this, and when they're all on the court. But like you just said, Tim, are they ever going to all be on the same court?
Who knows?
Maybe as opponents. I don't know. But I think my number 3, I think we all have the same top 2 then, that means, because my number 3 is the 76ers with Maxey, Embiid, Harden. While I might be one of the biggest James Harden haters, I'll have to admit, Shane, you are right. When he wants to turn it on, he can. But that's the other thing is, does he want to turn it on all the time? And even sometimes he does have those horrendous games. We have seen it before, but I think we see it with almost every player.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, Embiid, in my opinion, is the best center in the league. and it's very close with a couple other guys, but I think Embiid's the best center in the league. So that's just a huge game changer. I'm a huge fan of Maxey, even though I absolutely hate the 76ers. I have to admit, I love Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
He's an exciting player to watch. He's young. He's always in that conversation with Jordan Poole and one other person I'm blanking on the name. But either way, like as that bench guy off the bench or whatever, and Maxey could and should maybe be starting. Maybe he still stays as 6-man. But yeah, I really like Maxey. I think that he's going to be a phenomenal player for a long time. So I do have the 76ers coming in at 3 without that 3. At number 2, we might all have the same one here.
Okay.
I have the Boston Celtics.
Okay.
I have Brown and Tatum are obviously 2. Who's that third? Is it Marcus Smart? Is it Robert Williams? Probably Marcus Smart, because Robert Williams doesn't really do much other than defend, which that's all they need him to do. But I mean, they've proven. I mean, Marcus Smart has proven for years that he's one of the best defenders in the league. Maybe not defensive player of the year, but he's one of the best defensive players in the league. Tatum, Brown, both proving that they're young superstars in this league, that they're going to continue to get better. Each have their own things to improve upon. Tatum, probably more so the defense is his weakest or his weak point. And then Jaylen Brown just got to be smarter with the ball, be able to actually dribble the ball, as we've said multiple times on this show. Is that
We've said it like 40 times. You just can't dribble.
If I ever meet Jaylen Brown, I'm going to tell him how much we talk about it, but I will always love Jaylen Brown at the same time, as long as he doesn't do anything dirty or anything like that to Boston. But yeah, I have them at 2. I think, they got to the finals, obviously, this past year. Even in the bubble, they were really good. Smart, when he's on, shooting-wise, he is on. Like, he is a knockdown shooter. When he's on, again, it's very close when he is on and off. But Tatum and Brown, 2 strong superstars. So that's who's coming in at 2 for me, the Boston Celtics.
Also got the Celtics at 2. Tatum, unbelievable scorer. Brown, unbelievable scorer. I think Brown's a much better defender. I know Tatum's gotten a lot of praise for his defense lately. I think it's a little premature, but Brown's a really, really good defender. And he's very annoying to play against because of the same thing all 3 of these guys do. Sometimes, and Ben, you can attest this, sometimes they play like they don't want to win basketball games. Jaylen Brown's another guy, shot selection, epidemic, but sometimes those pull-up threes with 15 seconds left on the shot clock, they go in. Mm-hmm. They went in a lot in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'll say that. Jaylen Brown does also a really good job of getting to the free throw line. He's a really aggressive attacker of the basket. Now, of course, that comes with also he can't dribble. So when he does that sometimes, he turns the ball over. We saw in the finals, Tatum's turnovers were an epidemic. And Marcus Smart, shot selection, to me, it's a big issue. Just because you're open sometimes doesn't mean it's the best shot. Like Draymond Green always says, yeah, I'm open. But if it takes 2 more seconds to work and get Steph Curry a shot, that's a better shot, right? So to me, the ball leaving Marcus Smart's hands is not as good of a shot as the ball leaving Tatum or Brown's hands. I think a lot of these guys, it's decision making. I think they could compete for the number 1 trio because, again, Marcus Smart's the oldest at 28, 29 years old. He's probably not going to get any better. He can become a more efficient player. He can play a different way. But Tatum and Brown, they can get a lot better. So they have a very good shot to be number 1 unless something changes like roster-wise, right? Unless somehow Kevin Durant lands in Miami without giving up Bam Adebayo. Then y'all cook. Then we coming right back. But for right now, the Celtics are 2, threatening for 1.
Yeah, and I got them at 2 too. And I think the interesting thing about this group is, and you mentioned it just now, Tim, the age of the 2 top guys, right? This is a team that should theoretically have a lot of room to grow still, even after coming off a finals run. And obviously a lot of that is going to come down to, like you said, can Tatum continue to become an even better player as an all-around player, 2-way player? Can Jaylen Brown dribble? Again, I'll throw it out there since you guys are saying it so much. I do think it's interesting with him because, like you said, he really likes to attack the basket, but the turnover numbers in the playoffs for a couple of those games were just astronomical, and you can't be having that against good teams.
Games away,
literally, and you can't do that against good teams, especially good defensive teams that will take advantage of that type of situation. So if they can clean those things up, if Marcus Smart can continue to be an all-world defender, Robert Williams, obviously, whatever of those two you want to pick as the big three with them, I think that is Smart at this point still too, just because he does have the ability to put the ball on the floor and actually do some things with it. But they're definitely threatening for number one. I think that I wanted to give them one because of the finals run, but I want to see them do it again with this core. And if they can do that again, I think they'll be at that spot at that point.
Yeah, I think then that probably means we all have the same number one. But Shane,
Yes.
start us off. Who do you got at number one?
You got to go with the Bucks, right? Still at this point, like this team, the thing that's so interesting with this three, especially, is they might complement each other better than any other big three going right now, especially in the East, right? You have the full-blown MVP caliber player with Giannis who can do just about everything except shoot the basketball at a high level. Then you have Chris Middleton, who does everything that he doesn't do offensively well and really well when he's on. And then you have an all-world defender with Holiday as your, one of your wing players there with Middleton. I think that it's just so hard to deal with those three when they're all playing well at the same time that it almost doesn't really matter that much who else is on the floor with them, because Giannis can just take over the game if he wants to, right? Pretty much just based on nothing other than just willpower and size and athleticism, just take over games offensively, especially. And if Middleton's hitting his shots at a high clip, which, sometimes it's iffy, but I'm expecting him to be fine still in that route. They're just hard to defend in general. And then you have Jrue Holiday screwing everything up for everyone else. Just absolute madman on defense. It's so fun to watch him play. I still remember watching him in Philly when he first came in the league. He's one of my favorite players right away when I started watching basketball more, because it was just fun to watch him run all over the place and do crazy stuff defensively. So until we see this team get beat when everyone's there, because obviously Middleton missing time against the Celtics was a big deal for them, I have to still give them the de facto one.
I've also got the Bucks at one. It mainly comes down to Giannis. The other two guys are great players, no doubt. To me, Giannis is the best player in basketball. You can flip a coin between him and Luka, but right now, defense for me makes him considerably better. Also, Luka's got obviously the passing and the shooting, but Giannis has Defensive Player of the Years up in that trophy case of his. He's unbelievable, and Middleton complements him so well. I remember the whole Batman and Robin debate. I mean, it was stupid. Middleton's a closer. Yeah, he can score from the outside. Giannis is a freak. He's an alien we've never seen before. And then Jrue Holiday, one of the best defensive guards in the league, one of the best defensive guards of the last decade. But on top of that, he's a really good pick and roll ball handler.
Yes.
He's a streaky shooter, but not a bad shooter by any stretch of the imagination. Those last 4 games of the finals against the Suns, some of the best basketball I've seen a trio like that play. Obviously, there have been trios like LeBron, D-Wade, Chris Bosh. Those guys are all all-star starters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Giannis is an all-star starter. Chris Middleton's a one-time all-star. Jrue Holiday made an all-star game 10 years ago. Like, we're talking about one guy and then 2 Bs. Like, that back then was 2 As and an A-. But the way those 3 guys played against the Suns, who are a damn good basketball team, and had just beat them down 2 games in a row in Phoenix. I mean, the way Giannis was moving on defense with his knee falling apart.
Yeah.
Chris Middleton going up against, I believe Mikal Bridges made all defensive first team this year, was getting DPOY votes. I think so. And against Bridges and Crowder, they had no answer for Chris Middleton for half that series.
Nothing.
I mean, he was unbelievable. Chris Paul's talking about, when Giannis at the free throw line, we expect to miss. And then he goes 17 of 18 from the free throw line the next game. 50
That was
points.
one of the funniest. Like, when that was happening and I was watching it, I'm like, is he really going to hit like 95% of his free throws today? Because that's such a funny thing to just be able to do as a player that struggled with it. Just that you can just do that all of a sudden. Like, just do that all the time, man, please. No one will ever stop you from scoring 40 if you can hit free throws like that. It's insane.
I mean, they had a 3-2 lead on Boston without Middleton. Why did they have that 3-2 lead? Jrue Holiday stole the game away, right? Took it right from Marcus
Quite
Smart.
literally, yeah.
I mean, they're really, really good. I think they're getting a little bit overlooked right now because they didn't even get to the conference finals after winning the championship. Yeah. But let's make no mistake. They are here, and they're going to be here for, I don't want to say 3 to 5 because the other 2 guys are a little bit older. But
at least next couple of years, though. Yeah.
Next 2 to 3, I mean, I would feel very comfortably about closing my eyes and putting money on Milwaukee to win the East. It'll probably be the safest bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that it's easily them. They've won a championship together, right? Last year, I do think that Boston loses that series if Middleton's playing. I mean, the number one thing is the other crazy part is we look at all all these trios, right? Young sometimes can struggle to turn the ball over. And with the Heat, you got Butler who can struggle to be efficient at times, right? The Celtics turn the ball over. The Sixers can get a little lazy / turn the ball over as well. The number one thing that this Bucks team does, they play smart basketball. Giannis knows what he can do, which at this point, if he can continue to improve that jump shot, will be everything in this game because Tim, like you said, he's the greatest player on earth, whether you think of him as a center, power forward, whatever. He's the greatest player on this earth right now, in my opinion. Holiday plays very smart basketball, can move the ball around, can get his assists, rack those up. Middleton knock down shots, and he's a good defender. I mean, he's very overlooked as a defender, I think. I think a lot of people think of Middleton and they think, oh, he's just kind of a shooter. These Giannis's Robin to his Batman. No, I mean, I really think Middleton is one of the most underrated players in this league. I think that Celtics series showed it because, like Tim said, they were up 3-2. And with Middleton, this series may be a 5-game series, maybe 6 still, but or maybe the 6 with Milwaukee winning, but it might be a 5 if if we're being honest. As a Celtics fan, we're being honest, that series might be a 5-game series if it's not for Middleton being hurt. They probably are the favorites in the East, depending on how some of these new teams do with their new additions. With Brogdon coming over to the Celtics, can he be that third guy now instead of Smart? Who knows? I mean, we will have to see as it comes up. But yeah, I mean, Giannis is by far the best player on planet Earth right now, in my opinion. You got another shooter. They do complement each other perfectly, absolutely perfectly. And Budenholzer knows what he's doing with all three of them. I mean, he's one of the best coaches, I think, in the league as well. So I think it's a pretty easy one. We all had similar lists, very, very similar. I think it was just every once in a while, a little swap here and there. But I mean, the East has a lot of good young trios too. Young, that's the key word. Is that Hawks team is young. That Heat team, I know Jimmy Butler's a little older, but Hero and Bam are young. Mm-hmm. Milwaukee, even though you had Holiday and Middleton might be getting up there, they're still not exactly old. Celtics young, Sixers still pretty young with Maxey. So a lot of talent coming up in this league in the East. Maybe it's the conference or the conference that's going to take over. Maybe it already is. Who knows? But I mean, we're all similar lists. I think it's pretty fair to say that the only one that we're still very, very much question mark on is the Nets, because we haven't seen them play yet. But
yeah,
Tim brought up very good points saying this could be a team easily, if these three guys are healthy, could easily be a very, very good trio in this league.
Or they could be an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah. It really comes down to Ben. And that's why I left him as an honorable mention for me, because I just have to assume at this point that it's not going to work out, because that's what's happened with the Nets up to this point. And then also I want to definitely keep an eye out for the Cavs at this point. They interest me a lot because
young core as well.
Yes, because I didn't want to put them 5 yet, because I think that's a little bit too early to be doing that. But if they play even better than they did last year for a full season with those three, especially, they could sneak up there in the top 5 for sure.
Evan Mobley's 20.
Exactly. So give him another year. Old. Yeah, we'll see how he plays, but
yeah, a lot of young talent in this Eastern Conference. I mean, it's gonna be coming out. The Eastern Conference is gonna be fun for next 5-10 years at least. But that's gonna do it for us. We're not going into baseball. Baseball, I know next week there's been a lot of moves with baseball.
Yeah,
they're gonna be covered all next week. It's going to be probably a pretty long baseball segment.
Yeah, I want to save to see what happens tomorrow, because deadline's coming up.
The Dodgers, baby. Let's get it done.
Listen, if that happens, we probably won't be talking about it on the baseball.
I don't don't even know what
segments, though.
I don't even know what the Red Sox are doing. It's questionable.
Fire
Not
sale.
not a whole lot. So
Well, I
It's
don't
not
know. They've got
positive.
Tommy Pham, and who else did they just pick up? Somebody else they picked up, but
good for them.
it's interesting. Baseball. We'll get into that next week.
Yep.
So that's gonna do it for us. Any last words, Tim and Shane?
Kevin Durant, let's get to Miami, baby.
Yeah, do
Sunshine-
that. Please.
sunshine's waiting
That'll
for
be
you.
fun. But you make sure you tell them Bam's. Well, Bam's gonna have to stay anyway. Probably make sure Bam stays. We'll be good.
I'm gonna end it off with a football line. So go Bills.
Of course.
And we will see you guys next week.